Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Golf and Politics. We have a great guest today. His name is Marc Bender. Marc is a managing partner of numerous businesses in the golf industry. He has a decorated history of growing the game of golf. Marc leads 5 global businesses in leisure, travel, tourism, industries, and it's all surrounding golf. He graduated from New York Law School, attended American University, played golf on a golf scholarship, and he's passionate about golf course architecture. He's a 2 handicap. He's played, unlike Rob, who's only played 99, Marc has played 100 of the top 100 golf courses in the United States, and he's also a competitive tennis player. Rob, do you want to introduce Marc a little more informally? I know you guys have had a relationship for quite a few years.
Well, actually, we met over the last winter with a good friend of ours in Tampa, playing Old Memorial, or not Old Memorial, we were playing the Pelican Golf Club, which is a really cool place just outside of Tampa. And the member who hosted us is a mutual friend, and he had been telling me we needed to meet for a long time because we're both psycho obsessed with golf. I think Marc might be more obsessed with golf than me, if that's possible. But we had a great time out there, and we started comparing notes, and we both travel a ton. And right now we're in the process of trying to figure out how to get on some courses together to play more rounds, and if we know different people in different cities where we happen to be going. But that's really how you get on the top 100 courses. You let people know, where you'd like to play, and they know somebody who knows somebody, and then eventually you get there. But Marc runs Hidden Links Travel. If you watch the commercials on Golf Channel, Sir Nick Faldo is their spokesman. He does a lot of charity work. We played together at Milwaukee Country Club in August for the Evans Scholarship for caddies that go on to college. And he also runs Upper Deck Golf, which I think you've probably heard of, but they essentially take over pro football or pro baseball stadiums, and they create a golf course out of it. And I got to go to Ohio Stadium in Columbus this summer and take my niece and nephews and their friends and my sisters and brothers-in-law and go to the Horseshoe and hit some balls down onto the field, which was a lot of fun. But I thought Marc would be a great guest today because he is all about growing the game of golf, not just for himself to go play the world's best courses, but he helps people that want to travel overseas and experience links golf like we just did. But he also brings golf into corners of the country that are either underprivileged or looking for a leg up. So we're excited to have you on the program, Marc.
Great to be here. Thanks, guys.
Well, let me kick it off with a question, because I do political advertising. I work on campaigns, obviously my busy time of year. I'm blessed to have the business I have and do the work that I do, but there are days that I'm jealous of men like you that are working in the golf industry. So tell me, what do you love most about your work in the golf industry?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Matt. It's kind of a fascinating story. I spent the first half of my career working on Wall Street in various capacities, mainly with a family office where I got to meet every type of person you could imagine. And I've just been passionate about golf and travel for basically my whole adult life. And I had the unique opportunity to spend probably 75, 80% of my days in an office setting, and then the balance of my work days on the golf course, networking and putting people together that I thought were like-minded, that had something in common to be able to follow up on. And if I sort of gave away one little secret to what I would call the art of networking, it would be not just surrounding myself with a part of a foursome with 3 others that benefit me, but really thinking about the potential connection that the other 3 I'm inviting to play with me have with one another. And if everybody leaves that round of golf for that day that ends with some drinks or appetizers or what have you, with something in common to follow up on, independent of just me being the center point, then it's just going to be both a feel good and productive day for everyone that also gets to have you in the outdoors and enjoying certainly a game that I love very much. So for me, that was a really great way to start my career. The second half of my career, a very close golf buddy of mine since the 90s named Adam Wachter. We've been playing golf together for almost 25 years, 30 years coming up on. And essentially, he was a bond trader at Morgan Stanley and found a boutique golf company that booked golf vacations only to the state of Florida, 300 golf courses, 200 lodging partners. And we would pair those golf courses with a centralized lodging partner, which could be a private home, could be a corporate branded hotel, a Hilton, a Hyatt, a Marriott, Intercontinental, and what have you. And it's everywhere from your everyday value hotel that could be a Courtyard by Marriott or a Hyatt Place or Hampton Inns. And it also could be a Hyatt Regency or a JW Marriott or a Ritz-Carlton, or a luxury private home where a bunch of friends or couples or parent-childs could go and basically all share accommodations where they're paying a lot less per night and they don't have to have all the elements of a real corporate feel or even a resort feel when they're really there just to play golf. And we're able to extract a lot of value out of those packages based on our experience and our relationships. So if somebody had $1,000 budget, the vast majority of that business, which is under Tee Times USA and now Tee Times USA and Golf Pack Travel, which was their biggest competitor, that enables you to extract a lot of money for whatever your budget is. So if Rob said to me he's got $1,000 budget, not including airfare, and we don't do airfare, by the way, we do everything else, lodging, golf, and rental cars, it would basically be our job to make you feel like you got a $2,500 package for that $1,000. And with that said, we're not a discounter. You're never paying over retail, but you're not always getting a discount by booking with us. What you're getting is completely unbiased advice. And the reason for that is we basically buy at wholesale and sell at retail. So we're not a travel agency. We're a seller of travel. And that's the biggest difference. And that enables us to just give customers a ton of unbiased advice surrounded by a tremendous amount of experience. Our average person in sales has 15 years of experience working with us. And now we work with 1,000 properties across the US. So every major golf destination you can think of that is usually a warm winter climate. So you're talking Orlando, Tampa, Naples, Scottsdale, Miami, Palm Springs, Hilton Head, and for most of the year, Myrtle Beach. And you're also talking all the bucket list courses, the pebble beaches that are out there, Whistling Straits. You're talking Sea Island. TPC Sawgrass is a huge partner and a great partner. And we work with about 18 PGA Tour courses. So nearly every TPC course that you see on TV and that you've heard of, we work with them. So there's oftentimes a marquee course that's in a package that could be TPC Scottsdale, and then it's surrounded by some of the awesome courses around it. Call it True North and Wekopa and Talking Stick and Greyhawk, and basically all the courses that you would want to play that have some element of daily public access associated with it.
Amazing. So, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead. You have something.
Yeah, I was gonna, briefly talk about one of the things that Matt and I loved about our trip to Ireland, and the same is true of Scotland, is that you don't have to be a member of these clubs, and you can put a trip together. You can fly into Dublin, you can play Portmonarch, County Louth, go up to Portrush and Port Stewart. You can hop on a ferry and go over and play Troon and Turnberry. And in a span of a week, if you're willing to pay for it, you can play 7 of the best courses in the world. How do we improve the golf experience in the U.S.? Because right now, if you want to come over and play 7 of the top 100 courses in the U.S. right now, you can't unless you know members that are there. It's cost prohibitive. It's tough to do. How do we improve that openness of golf that Ireland and Scotland have?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and it's also fascinating because you see the cultural differences in the sense that overseas there's a tremendous pride factor in every sort of top golf course, and even I don't want to call them second tier courses. I'll call them lesser known courses. Enniscrone is a course that Matt is wearing a shirt for, and Eddie Hackett's the architect, and he also did Cairn Golf Links, and those are 2 of my favorite courses in Scotland and Ireland. They're as good as anywhere, just from I could play this course every day experience standpoint. So there's just endless amounts of great courses in terms of the bucket list famous courses compared with the real gems. You could call them hidden gems, but with the world of the internet and social media, there's fewer and fewer that somebody said, I really haven't heard of it. Now, at this point, most of these sleeper courses everyone's heard of, or at least knows somebody who's heard of them. But in answer to your question, it's just a fascinating thing, because the amount of operating revenue that is covered at international clubs by tourists coming to play those courses and having that access for, call it, 2 to 2.5 days a week out of the 7-day week covers the vast majority of operating costs. And the cost to belong to a lot of these clubs internationally is a very reasonable small amount. And it's not a scenario overseas where it's really designed to accommodate clubs for the wealthy. It's accommodating oftentimes the everyday working person who doesn't have a huge amount of money, but just has a passion for golf. And it's always been about sort of sharing those courses. I will tell you that no different than you, Rob. I mean, almost all of my contacts around private clubs were just trying to be a gentleman, appreciate the opportunity to have the privilege of playing somebody else's course. And it has little to nothing to do with the fact that I happen to be in the golf industry. I've had a lot of these relationships and friendships for 20 something years. And as you know, belonging to a few really nice places yourself, you're always happy to share your courses with anyone who's introduced to you, who's a good guy or a good gal or just a good person. And that to me is what it's all about. I have a very close friend who lives in Vancouver who was the 61st person to play the world top 100 courses. And when he started his journey about 10 years ago, I met him in 2015 and we were fast friends because just like you and I and Matt, we all have a shared passion for architecture and the great debate of what makes a course great, what's overrated, what's underrated, what may be your favorite, may be my least favorite, and vice versa. And I can tell you that Brian, when he hears this, he's going to smile and be happy I share his story, because he didn't have a single contact whatsoever. He doesn't belong to a renowned great golf course in Vancouver. He belongs to just a nice everyday club. And just through making some phone calls and being a pleasant guy to play with, and maybe most important, playing at a pretty quick pace, which we all know is important, he enabled himself to just meet people who introduced him to more people, who introduced him to more people. And he played the world top 100, not having a single contact to get him started. And he loves to tell that story. So I'm the first to tell you that you don't need, you just need to be a little bit savvy in the way you meet people. You need to not be imposing in the way you ask. You need to understand that it's a privilege, not a right. And as you know, you need to certainly be willing to pay for your own freight. But I don't really think anyone who is going to play a private club in any capacity is looking for a free ride. So I don't think it's as hard as one may think if you just know how to ask in the right way and be a gentleman in how you do it.
Well, and another way to get on some of the super private clubs that I found is through charity. I played Maidstone playing in a scholarship tournament for Long Island Caddies Association. I played Marion in a charity event. So sometimes that's a way for people that are looking to play those courses that might not have the connections to get on them to give it a try. I was just thinking while you were talking about a potential idea. I know in DC and other cities we have a restaurant week. I think most cities have that, where the best restaurants in the city put out a price fixed menu, and people can go try the different restaurants where ordinarily they might have trouble getting a table. Wouldn't it be cool if different regions of the country that had top clubs could do a private club week? Maybe it's at the end of the season or at the beginning of the season, or on days where they provide access to either international tourists or people that would love to see the course, obviously pay a premium. But there's enough of a market out there for people that maybe they live in Pittsburgh and have dreamed of playing Oakmont, and they've never been able to play Oakmont. And there's 1 week a year where members allow for that to happen. And there's going to be people that, even if they're not well off, are willing to pay a one-time fee. Is that something that you think could ever work? Or
Yeah, I mean, look, it already in one form or another exists in what you referenced from the charity aspect. And what's really cool about it is that, as we all know, there are courses that have hosted a ton of major championships. And because of that, everybody's heard of Oakmont, everybody's heard of Marion. I'm recording this right now with you sitting 3 minutes from Marion at a friend's house, and Aronimink 10 minutes down the road. And the cool thing about it is that obviously Marion and Oakmont are both phenomenal. There's no real debate to have there. Sure, you can have a personal preference of one versus the other, but I don't think many would turn down a day at either if invited. And what I'll tell you is that, an hour and a half away is Hollywood Golf Club, and they do a health-oriented charity event every October in the first week of October. And many will tell you, and I certainly agree, that kind of the last week of September, first 2 weeks of October are the best 3 weeks of the year in the Northeast for golf. The conditions are firm. They don't have to worry about the greens getting burnt out, so they're almost always cut and rolled and super fast. They're not growing as much because the sunlight is less, the growth is less, and the ability to really keep those greens at a speed that maybe they weren't even designed for, which we could talk about at some other time today on the architecture front, is just a great way to experience the course in what I would think is its most fun form. But the point I was going to make to you is that day at Hollywood includes a really nice lunch, a great dinner, and around the golf, and it's $400 in terms of the cost and donation to the charity. So, I mean, you could play a lot of nice public courses and pay a lot more than 400. And you're playing a golf course in Hollywood that is, a 100-plus-year-old Walter Travis course that has been beautifully restored by Brian Schneider and Renaissance Group, Tom Doak's group, and all the little crevices and nuances and little shelves on those greens have been brought back to life with a really nice bunker renovation. And from my standpoint, that's the conversation of like an Enniscrone, where just as a golf course to go and play that's got the championship caliber, it's as enjoyable a day as you'll have anywhere. And anybody can play that golf course for $400. Yeah, it gets sold out, and they may have a couple of other charity events that may be a little bit more, but nearly every course we're talking about has at least a couple of charity days a year, and some are more expensive than others. But the beauty of it is they're supporting really meaningful causes. There's an aspect of it that you're getting a charitable deduction for, but even as a bonus, you're getting to play phenomenal golf courses that the everyday person who's always heard about these courses but not had the access now has an opportunity to play. So it's really a win-win.
I just want to.
That's how. So Rob and I played Oak Tree National
Yeah.
in July.
Yeah, and so we mentioned Oak Tree National, Marion, Oakmont, Hollywood, all are architecturally significant, interesting courses. What is it for you? And you've played everywhere. What makes a great golf course for you, and how do you differentiate between the architecture and the experience? Because sometimes some of my favorite places to play in the U.S., like the Boot Ranch in Texas and Stock Farm Club in Montana,
Yep.
you won't find them on the top 100 list architecturally, but they make a great day. So I guess that's
Yep.
two separate questions.
Yeah.
What for you makes a great golf course, and what for you makes a great golf experience, and how do you balance the two when putting a trip together?
Yeah, you couldn't have asked me a more exciting question or two questions to answer. I don't know if we're going to have enough time for me to give you the full answer, but I'll give you some insight on both fronts. And I'll just start by saying that for me, what makes a handful of clubs in the world so special is when they're a combination of a great golf club and a great golf course. And there's only so many that fit that bill. I've been to Stock Farm Club. I think that's just a terrific Tom Fazio golf course. It's an unbelievable piece of property. It's captivating the whole way around. The whole culture and aura there is just filled with people who are just happy to be there. Great vision by Charles Schwab, and what he did when he founded the course was actually he was essentially the president of the club for the first many years because he had wanted his personal touch associated with it. And his sort of subsequent president happens to a guy named Rich, happens to be a good friend, become a good friend of mine. And I just met him randomly to the point we discussed earlier. I just was out there and he decided to join me, and we paired up, never knew each other. And we've been friends for 3 years since. And he's San Francisco based, and he's a great guy. And his mindset towards that club is exactly what Charles Schwab's was. And what is that X factor that makes for just a great club? Well, I think every club has a different definition, and an outsider looking in as a guest can decide if they think it's a great club for what they look for as an actual environment and place to spend a lot of time with. But for the most part, every club's going to define, do the majority of people that go there have that special feeling that makes them want to be there, and a lot of times spend a lot of time there, because people sort of can often be married to a club. And some clubs are geared towards couples, some are geared towards buddies, some have men's and women's leagues, and some are not oriented that way. Some have a lot of play, some are never crowded, some have a lot of events, some don't have really any events. And I think for me, I'll go back specifically to your first question of, what makes a great, you were asking what makes a great golf course as your first question, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think for me, it's funny. Steve Smyers is a very good friend of mine, and I think he's one of the most underrated architects that are out there. For those who don't know, he did Isleworth back in the late 90s, sort of preparing it for Tiger to have it be his home course and home ground to train on. And he did a great job at creating a true championship test of golf. And when we have these conversations, he always says that, a great golf course is one that tests every aspect of your game. And that can lead to a whole different conversation about the modern day types of golf courses that have gained such popularity versus the older style golf courses that Rees Jones and Tom Fazio designed, that were really designed to host championship golf. And some people would call them a really tough test of golf, and some people would call them great because they test every part of your game. So, as a good player, I certainly look at those golf courses as giving me good feedback on where my game is, and I take them for what they are, and I enjoy them. And I heard this line yesterday, which I thought was spot on. You talk about the Open Championships. I was with Peter Jacobson on Monday at the Jay Sigel Invitational at Aronimink. That's what brought me to Philadelphia right now. And, Aronimink's just one of those golf courses that I think is just a great golf course. Why do I think it's great? A lot of people will tell you, a lot of people that don't absolutely love it will tell you they think there's a lot of redundancies, just a lot of long par fours. I don't look at it that way at all. I look at it as there's just a lot of great holes, and they repeat themselves in a different way. But what happens is if you blink the wrong way and you think you're having a really good round, you can just make bogeys as a good player really quickly, or double bogeys as a decent, not great player very quickly. And a lot of people find that frustrating compared to modern architecture that oftentimes have, 40 to 80 yard fairways where almost everybody is in play, and then you're all brought together for the challenge around the greens. And a lot of those courses have more severe green complexes and green surrounds to make up for the fact that almost everybody's going to have a second shot, and you're going to have a chance to get on that green. But if you're not coming from the right position, it may be tougher to hold the ball onto the green. And if you miss a certain green, you may roll 30, 40 yards off and just play ping pong going back and forth, right? We've all played those types of courses. So for me, I try to just embrace the golf course as it gives it to me. There are certainly golf courses that are not my favorite, that I just think miss the mark, but then I'm able to enjoy a lot of the great modern day courses that I think are phenomenal. I think what Tom Fazio did at Wade Hampton and Shadow Creek are marvels. They're incredible. I think Shadow Creek's invention of taking flat desert, if you look at that picture, it doesn't really matter. Yes, it matters if you've played it, but if you haven't been lucky enough to play it, and I've been lucky enough to play it a couple of times, I can tell you that you can just look at the pictures and read online and look at a flat desert and then think of a golf course that could either be in the mountains of the Carolinas or in Vermont, with the amount of trees that were brought in and the elevation changes. And then you look at Wade Hampton and you think of from the 12th hole to the 16th hole at Wade Hampton are 5 par 4s in a row. And you will not find any of those 5 that have any similarities to them. They all have great continuity, and you're on the same property, but they're 5 of the most captivating par 4s you could possibly imagine. The 12th is a short par 4 that can bite you real quick, really tough approach shot because it's a short approach shot. And I'm a big fan, and specifically answering your question, I'm a huge fan of the difficulty of the approach shot matching the length of the approach shot. So I do believe a 100-yard approach shot should be a lot harder than a 200-yard approach shot. And on that golf course, that's what you get. You get every distance of the shot relative to the difficulty of the green surface or the elevation of the green or the way the green is angled matches up perfectly to the length of shot, because you should be more accurate with a wedge in your hand than with a 5-iron or a hybrid. And I think what Fazio did there is awesome. And those are modern courses. Wade Hampton's 1987, Shadow Creek's 1991. Going back to Steve Smyers, he has a daily fee course in Orlando, which is one of our biggest partners. That's called Southern Dunes, and it's as enjoyable a course as you could play anywhere. I look forward to playing there as much as I do any private club. And, it's basically a $130, $140 daily fee golf course. And we book thousands of rounds there as parts of our packages, and the conditioning is off the charts. I mean, the greens there are usually as good as any private club in the Orlando area and all over Florida. And, what Steve has done is made sure that it's a fair test of golf. But if you're off, you're going to know you're off. So the simple answer for me, Rob, is I like to finish a round and say I should shoot what I should have shot. I know that you played out at Coral Ridge earlier this year, which is a lesser known course in South Florida. It's in North Fort Lauderdale. And Reese Jones, originally Robert Trent Jones, his dad designed that course back in the 1960s. And in 2020, Reese completely redid the golf course. And I think it's one of his best designs. And I feel that way because it's a perfectly flat piece of land. Yet the course is super interesting. All the greens have numerous sections to them. And the coolest thing about the golf course is all the bunkers are below the surface of the green, usually pretty substantially. And when your ball's in the air and it's got a little bit of side spin and you think to yourself, it's 50-50, it's going to go in this bunker, it's really 90-10 that it's going to go in the bunker. There's a 90% chance. All the edges are shaved off the greens and they're hand mown. And if your ball has side spin and hits the side of the green, it's going to go in the bunker. But every time I play that golf course, I say to myself at the end of the round, I shot exactly what I should have shot. Now, does that mean that I can't appreciate modern architecture and what is so good about the fun courses that are on great pieces of property that have that great experience and that great environment, and they're just a different test of golf because the fairways are super wide? Well, the answer is that transitions to the second half of your question, which is, what makes a great experience? I think some of those golf courses are great golf courses, and I know I'm going to have a great time every time. They're just different. It's just a different experience. So I could give you, 10 examples of courses that have been around for a while and some that are new. Ballyneal, I have several friends at Ballyneal, about 2.5 hours outside of Denver. And Tom Doak worked his butt off on that golf course, has a beautiful piece of property with great topography. And, he built a Scottish style golf course in terms of the way the course flows and feels. And it's just a great environment. What makes a great environment? I could answer you and say milkshakes makes a great environment, right? Ballyneal and Castle Pines and Muirfield Village and Whisper Rock. Those 4 courses probably have the best milkshakes in the country. Who doesn't have a great day when you have a delicious milkshake during or after a round, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just puts a smile on your face. It just plays tricks on your brains, right? So, that environment, that aura, the vibe, the hang, the people that you're surrounded by, the membership, that's a big factor. Are you going as an acquaintance or are you going because you have a friend there? Well, if you go with a friend, you're going to probably have a different feeling than somebody you're just meeting for the first time. But maybe you'll be fast friends, and maybe 6 holes in, you'll have that great camaraderie. You do events, Rob, and participate in events that are Ryder Cup style, and it's the camaraderie of everybody who's there, who's just happy to be there. You do things that are associated with charity. That's great. So you're all there for the right reasons and getting to have fun in the process and enjoy being out there and enjoy the privilege to not be in an office for a day or a few days. So
and it's so
please,
true. I mean, having played the top 100, one of my experiences through the first 99 was a lot of times you're flying into a small airport, renting a car at Hertz, staying at a Holiday Inn Express and driving, 2-3 hours in between whatever top 100 courses are there. And sometimes you get to play it with friends or new people, and other times, you're just playing the course with an assistant pro who's accompanying you. And what I like doing now is kind of picking out of the top 100 my favorite ones and sharing them with people I care about. Because for me now, I'd almost rather enjoy playing a lesser known course with three of my best buddies than just getting on a top course by myself. So, I mean, the best of all worlds is getting to share it with your friends and getting to play it. But two other quick comments. I'll turn it over to Matt before I hog up all of your wisdom on my own. I got to play with Steve Spires the day after I met you. We played Old Memorial, and he had designed Old Memorial. So it was really cool getting to play a golf course with the guy who designed it. And one of the questions I asked him was, how and when do you decide on the clubhouse? Is it the first thing you decide, like Donald Ross, where you pick where the clubhouse is and you route out and back? Is it the last thing you decide? And he said nobody had ever asked him that, but he said, it's pretty simple and tough to describe. The simple part is access points from the nearby roads and where you can build to get into it and find a proper place to build. But he also said once you walk the property a couple times, you really start to get a feel for where the vibe comes in together. So I thought that was interesting. And then just on Coral Ridge, what I loved about Coral Ridge is it's one of those golf courses that I feel like you get what you deserve. It rewards good shots, it punishes bad shots, and you know where your game stands at the end of it. I didn't think it was too penal. And to me, a great golf course today, there are two types. There's the Oakmont or Congressional model, where you walk off the 18th green and you feel like you just finished warfare. And the good player in me appreciates that because it's like, man, I just did that. I'm proud of how I played. I'm proud of my score, but man, I'm ready to go home. And then there's the Fox Chapel model, and you've played Fox Chapel, where you walk off the 18th green and you're like, man, I could go to the first tee. That was fun. It didn't beat the hell out of me. I enjoyed it. It was interesting, but it was fun. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt because I know you've got a series of questions.
Well, let
in
me
the queue.
just, if I
Yeah.
can just spend 30 seconds taking
Yeah.
one step further, because I want to merge the two for you on that comment I made of both great golf clubs and great experiences. And that's, you hit one nail on the head with a great example. So Old Memorial is a great golf course you can play every day. And it's a great experience just based on the environment and the way in which everybody who's there creates a warm, welcoming feeling. It was founded by the founders of Outback Steakhouse, and they have a great food and beverage program. They have a great wine program. They've got a great clubhouse environment, and it's really the people that make that club so special. But as you know, as do I, it's also just a great golf course. And that golf course was, a complete flat piece of land, and it's got great movement. It's got great variety, and it's just got that great fun element and vibe. So from my perspective, I think that would be the great example. I agree with everything that you said, Rob, about the feeling that you get when you walk off the 18th hole. Do you feel like you just went through a battle and you're ready to take a breath and have any type of drink, whether it's a lemonade or an iced tea or a case of beer? It doesn't really matter. Or do you feel like, okay, let's just grab a half sandwich or a peanut butter and jelly and go straight to the net first tee because we want to do it again? If you play National Golf Links is sort of that timeless example of a golf course that nearly everybody that plays there would love to play twice, because you get off the golf course and you think it's got that championship feel. It's got the incredible CB McDonald template greens. It's got a great piece of property. It's got a ton of different variety from hole to hole. It's probably got the best Redan hole ever, in my opinion. And it just creates that funness factor where you want to play it again and again and again. And on the same note, you could look right next door at Shinnecock and be like, who wouldn't want the privilege to play Shinnecock? Lots of people just like watching Shinnecock, but you're going to have every part of your game tested, and you're going to be really tired after you finish the 18th green there. especially if you hit it in the high grass.
Good point. To add one more thing to that, one thing that Rob and I talked about during our trip to Ireland, there were some courses that we said, if you're not a single digit handicap, I don't know if you'd really enjoy playing that golf course because it's so hard. I mean, Donegal, like for instance, from the tips that we played, where the tees we played at, I mean, if you're not a single digit, that course with the weather we were in is just going to beat the hell out of you. Now, St. Patrick's, that was wide open, and I think anybody can play it. The green complex is kind of funneled to the holes. The fairways are twice as wide of any other fairways we played in Ireland. I think that's open to everybody. It's interesting to have so many different types of golf courses and then sit around the table and discuss which ones are your favorites. And so often what we found is the ones that were people's favorites is where they played the best that day. Oh yeah, I love that golf course. If they played like shit, like they didn't like it, so.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true.
there's the emotional attachment, right? Because we all know there's no harder game you could play than golf. So who doesn't want to get that feedback and feel good about their game? And there's some great golf courses by anyone's standards that set up better for some people than others, right? If your weakness is driving the ball and you play a course that has narrow fairways that are lined with rough, it's really hard to score well, no matter how good a putter you are, right? Because you're going to be putting to try and save pars all day long if you're spraying the ball and hitting 20% of the fairways. But if you drive the ball like, Fred Funk used to, or, any of those guys, Mike Reed, Tom Pertz, are all turning back the clock to some of the guys way back when who hit 75% of the fairways, you're going to be able to play any golf course and feel good about it. And you kind of want to play the harder golf courses that demand a premium on driving the ball. So I think I'll make this one point just to give you a complete thought. The reason this trend the past 15 or so years with modern architects on new builds with Doak and Gil Hands and that type, Brian Schneider now with Old Barnwell, and what Zach Blair created at the Tree Farm. These golf courses that have great pieces of property and expansive driving zones make everybody feel like no matter what level they play at, they're going to have a great time because they can always find their golf ball and they always have a chance at a second shot. They can have bad rounds, but they're not going to basically be taken out of the hole right after they hit their tee shot where they feel like they're hoping just not to make a double bogey. It really all started with Bill Coore and Ben Crenshaw at Friars Head in 2002 or so, where it was some large, expansive fairways, but you still will get challenged around the greens. And there are definitely some holes that you can take more aggressive lines and cut some distance off. But even if you don't, you can just hit this big slice and you'll just have a longer second shot in. And most of those greens, especially in the longer holes, have entryways where you can bounce shots in. So there's a lot of different ways that you can accomplish a truly fun golf experience that's going to make people feel good and still have that quote unquote championship feel. Now, if you talk to different architects, they're going to give you a different answer in terms of what defines a championship golf course. There are some architects that have built championship golf courses that'll tell you those are not their definition of championship because they're not necessarily testing every aspect of your game the way, a Bethpage Black would, where you play Bethpage Black, you play Torrey Pines, you play Pebble Beach in championship condition. You're going to have to drive it well. You're going to have to hit your irons well. You're going to have a great short game on those small greens at Pebble, and you're going to have to putt well in order to come out as a winner. But as we know, I'm talking about championship golf. We're also talking about everyday golf, right? Everyday golf is a hard game where you want to make the bogey golfer feel like they have a good time. And that's why a lot of these golf courses today that have more forgiving fairways have plenty of challenge around the greens for the scratch golfer, but make it a lot more fun for the 95 shooter.
Well, switching gears just a little bit, you played golf at American University on a golf scholarship. I'd love to hear about your college golf experience. I played at a Division III school. I was a decent player, obviously not good enough to play Division I, but I meet a lot of young people that are playing the game. They're in high school. I have a senior in high school. My son's a senior in high school, and he's not a golfer, but a lot of his friends are. And a lot of them are good players that could play Division II, Division III, and they're choosing not to because they're not good enough to play at Oklahoma State or they're not good enough to play at a Power 4 school. And I feel like they're missing out because it was some of the best experiences of my entire life playing college golf. Is that similar to the experience you had playing in college? And what advice would you give to young people who are trying to make that decision on whether to play at the next level?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a hard question to answer in one way and an easier question in another way. The reason it's a hard question is if I sort of had the savviness and maturity that I have today as a 49-year-old that I had back as a late teenager, there are some things I definitely would have done differently. I definitely would have played golf differently. So I was at the tail end in the 90s of a lot of golf balls, and I didn't even get the benefit of the 2 years, I think, that the Titleist Professional was around before the Pro V1 came out in 2001. So golf balls curved a lot. They cracked if you scolded the ball. They didn't have the same durability, and it was a different style of golf. And I had a lot of club head speed, about 117 miles an hour when I played in college, but I played a totally different kind of game than I play today. I was very wild off the tee. My disposition in terms of internally how I dealt with balls that were hit out of play and how it affected me, and not realizing the simplest guidance you could give any young person in golf, which is to not only tell them in words that the most important shot in golf is the next one, but to actually make sure that they believe it. If I was able to have believed that, I would have had a much tighter dispersion or tighter range in my scoring that I had on different rounds. The best round of golf I ever played in college was hands down at Penn State in my last college tournament in April of 1997. I was literally one of the weirdest weather patterns of all time. It was 87 degrees and a record high in State College on the blue course at Penn State for the practice round. And the next day it was 38 degrees with sleet and wind and sideways rain and freezing rain and a little bit of snow. And I remember playing Titleist ICW sort of quasi blades. They had a little bit of foam in the back of them. And most people listening would have to Google those to see what they even look like to find some pictures. And I played the original Callaway Great Big Bertha, which to an extent I still think I hit further than the drivers I hit today, but that's neither here nor there. And I shot even par 72, but it was the low round of the entire day across 24 college teams because the conditions were just brutal. And I think what happened, and the reason I did that, is the elements had my mind just completely focused in a different way than I had back in those days, the way I played, because I had plenty of rounds in the 80s when I was playing in college, and I had plenty of rounds where I made 6-7 birdies in a round and 4 double bogeys in the same round. So if I look back, it would just be, things are very different today. College golfers today have a lot of mental coaching in a different way. Growing up playing junior golf. Now, keep in mind, I played 1 year of high school golf and 3 years of competitive high school tennis, and they were during the exact same season. So during my junior and senior year of high school, I actually caddied during the summer, and I caddied at Deepdale Golf Club. And Darrell Kessner, who is still the director of golf and head pro now, was the pro then, and to this day we've been friends ever since. And he couldn't have been nicer and treated me better. And I think that having access to play some golf that summer, I went from a 16 handicap to a 3. And the 16 was just kind of a made-up number. I never really played that much until I was 16 years old. And then I was kind of hooked on it. And I was considering trying to play tennis in college, but had a very good year and a half or so of playing golf and did okay in some tournaments. And basically, the next thing I knew, I wound up getting to play 4 years of college golf. What I can tell you about the experience, which was good for me, is that any aspirations I had of doing anything with golf outside of it being a hobby or playing some, area amateur tournaments was quickly put in check, because I played during the same years as a guy named John Rollins, who played for Virginia Commonwealth. And John is a low-key guy and was low-key on tour, so he's lesser known, but he's won 4 times in the PGA Tour, and he had his tour card for 20-something years. And his scoring average, I believe, was nearly 2 shots lower per round than the next closest guy down the Eastern Seaboard. And I was paired with him once, and I'll never forget this day. It was sort of soggy conditions, and we were playing, I don't know, make it a 6,800 yard course, let's call it 6,850, but it was playing like 7,000 plus because it was so soft. The ball would just sit and stop. And John literally made the golf course look like a pitch and putt. And I remember we shook hands on the 18th hole and took off our hats. And John looked at me and he said, "Nice playing, Mark." And I sort of half smiled and I said, "Well, I appreciate that, John." And I shot 74. And that was a pretty good round relative to the conditions. And I smiled and said, "John, I really don't know what to say to you if you think I played nicely, because you just shot 65." And that was pretty off the charts incredible. So that wasn't just a one-off story. That was a typical way that he played golf. So of course, in my mind, Tiger was a year behind me in college at Stanford. So I had one tournament that Tiger was in the field that I was in, and that was at the Dixie Amateur in South Florida. And basically, you just look at playing in that era, and you just sort of know where you stand. I was a good player, competitive, and wanting to do the best that I could. Had some very good rounds here and there, but I was just a pretty good amateur who was lucky enough to play college golf.
That's great. Rob, do you want to talk a little bit about Upper Deck, and then maybe we can get into maybe we'll get into a little bit of politics, and then get into our shotgun 9 here at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the impetus for Upper Deck Golf and why you got into this. How does the model work? And where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah, Upper Deck Golf is just a fun, awesome business. So first off, it's a company that's been around for about 6-7 years. It was founded by three great people, Carly and Brian Graham, and a gentleman named Frank Brown. And they rent out Major League Baseball, NFL, and college stadiums, and have a national partnership with Stand Up to Cancer, which is really pretty awesome because a percentage of profits go to Stand Up to Cancer, and it's just tremendous branding around all of our events throughout the stadiums. So we take over the LED board, we take over the banner strips, and basically we have access to, call it, 400, 500, 600 LED screens throughout. They're TVs that are just turned into screens. And on all of them is Stand Up to Cancer branding. And we're doing some initiatives with them with matches where we're trying to do special raises during certain months of the year, which you'll see more about on my LinkedIn and what have you in the coming days. And we'll probably put out a press release on that. But in terms of what the event does, it appeals to every golfer and non-golfer that you can imagine. It's essentially an off-course golf experience, and we rent out the stadiums. We have 9 target greens on the field. We set up 9 holes. You basically see the stadium from a 270 to 360 degree perspective, depending on the configuration of each stadium. Because as you surely know, in baseball, sometimes the outfield doesn't have seating from center plate, and sometimes it does. So if it does, you could be hitting a shot directly facing home plate, and you almost always will get to hit at least one shot from directly behind home plate. And you essentially get anywhere from 2 to 3 shots per hole, depending on what package you purchase. And you're hitting shots that range from 50 to 140 yards. And it's just pretty exhilarating because it's almost like a progression. You start at the lowest level, usually with the shorter shots first. Occasionally, based on safety concerns and stadium configuration, you may hit a 65, 70-yard shot going straight down from the upper level, just because we want to really take care of making sure nobody is in the firing zone. And that's a tricky thing to do, but we have a lot of experience in doing it. And we'll wind up doing about 22, 23 events this year. Every city that you could have possibly imagine, from cities that are not the marquee ones in terms of sort of the way people would think would be super popular. We did an event at the Buffalo Bills, completely sold out, had well over 10,000 people attend, and couldn't have spent enough time there. We'll go back next year and probably make it an even longer event. And then just a few weeks ago, we were at Fenway Park, and that was a sold out event. It's certainly an iconic stadium and one of the most unique configurations of any stadium in all of baseball. One of our annual staples is Wrigley Field. Last December, we were at the Dodger Stadium. When we went to Wrigley Field this year, we had just a unique experience. We brought Sir Nick Faldo there. He could not have been more gracious, took about 400 pictures. He did about 12, 13 different interviews with every type of outlet you could imagine, every walk of media. He did radio, he did the Chicago District Golf Association, he did Fox, he did NBC, he did ABC, and he did a recurring show that comes out every few weeks called Golf 360 Chicago, and he hit shots, he gave people swing tips, and just a quick point on Sir Nick. He's been a partner now for a few years, and we've been lucky enough, Adam and I, to develop a great friendship with him, and he's just been so gracious and accommodating, and just a super professional guy, and just a lot of fun actually to spend time with. And bringing him to Wrigley Field just created a vibe like you could imagine that was really just a special event. So we're covering every major city you can imagine. In the fall this year, 2024, we're going to be in Milwaukee at the Brewers Stadium. We've already been to Cincinnati. We've been to St. Louis this year. We're going to be at Coors Field, where the Colorado Rockies play. Our last 3 events of the year are super excited. Citizens Bank Park, home of the Phillies, is always a sold-out event that's awesome. And then we'll go from there to making our debut in Atlanta at Truist Park, where the Braves play, which is awesome. That's in mid-November and right before Thanksgiving. And then finally, we'll wrap up the year with our debut in Phoenix and Scottsdale at Chase Field, home of the Diamondbacks. So we've got a bunch of Major League Baseball stadiums, a handful of NFL stadiums. We've been to the Tennessee Titans a number of times. Every year or so, we go to Minnesota to the Twins and T-Mobile Park for the Seattle Mariners. And we just have a blast with it. It's
You left
by the
out
way,
you left out PNC Park in Pittsburgh.
I did. I left out the Orioles. We were at the
Yeah.
Orioles earlier this year. We
Yeah.
will be back in Pittsburgh. We will be back at Comerica Park, where the Tigers play. I know you're on a time limit here, Rob, so I wasn't going to give you the entire schedule. But
Well, no, but you gotta hit Pittsburgh. But so
Rob and I are Pirates fans, although the Pirates ownership doesn't seem to do anything to try to make us fans or win championships. So
Well, there's a saying.
it's hard. It's hard being a Pirates
There's a
fan.
saying in
leave out.
Pittsburgh.
Go ahead.
There,
Go ahead,
there's a
please.
saying. There's a saying in Pittsburgh right now. Our owner is Bob Nutting, and everybody says "spend nutting to win nutting."
I love it.
The Dave Ramsey of Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Well, I left out one key part, which is that what's so cool about Upper Deck Golf is if you look at the demographic of people that come, it's everybody you could possibly imagine. Our tee times run from 7 in the morning until 9 at night most days. And early in the morning, you may see that early riser retiree or somebody who's trying to just get it in and play before they go to work. And at nighttime, it's a totally different vibe where you've got couples, you've got date night, you've got parent-child, you've got buddies, you've got all women groups, you've got every type of person you can imagine. And you don't have to have any experience. About a third, you talk about growing the game, how we started this podcast here. And basically, about a third of the people who come to our events are non-golfers. So they're brand new to golf. And if we can have them leave feeling like they want to do it again and have a golf club in their hand, then we think that's just fantastic. And, we're partners with many and hopefully soon to be all of the major golf associations all over the country. The Gap in Philadelphia has been an unbelievable partner to us. Mark Peterson, who's been the executive director for 20-something years, is just a great guy, open-minded guy to try and do new initiatives, and we try to bring their members some benefits, and we work with them on some pre-sale opportunity that is exclusive in that Philadelphia market. And he's got a guy named Dan on his team who's just phenomenal to work with. And basically, we just try and make this accessible for everyone, and it's really very, very affordable. So there's a base level ticket that for most of the time right around $100 gives you access to spend 3 to 4 hours in an iconic stadium. And you get to see the stadium from a standpoint that you normally wouldn't, because you're able to hang out in all the VIP areas, in the clubhouse, in the season ticket holder areas, sometimes in the owners' boxes. Each stadium is different in the way it's configured, but it's a pretty special environment that just, if you can't relax in that environment, you won't anywhere. As you know, Rob, from having experienced it yourself, there's a great playlist of music. And that music is specifically geared. Brian on our team, one of the founders, did a great job at creating about a 12, 13-hour playlist that's geared towards a typical type of attendee at different points in the day, and what type of music would resonate with them and kind of make them have that feel good.
Hey, there was plenty of late '90s and early 2000s hip hop for me. I loved it. It worked. Before we shift gears into the a little politics and the shotgun nine, or that's how we end every episode. I want to give a quick hit to hidden links, just for the audience. If you're wanting to put together your first buddies trip, first gals trip, or couples trip to Ireland or Scotland, how do they contact Hidden Links? What service do you provide? And what would you recommend for a good first trip overseas for a group of American buddies or couples that want to go?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that question. It's a fun one. So one of the things that makes Hidden Links unique is we really do have a trip for everybody. So somebody who's on a tighter budget and wants to get great value, I can promise you, you will have an unbelievable experience, and we will go the extra mile to really find you a lot of gems and courses that you may not be familiar with, but you'll have an unbelievable time. And in the process, we'll make sure we get a couple of those famous bucket list courses in there that you've heard about and always wanted to play. So the first answer to your question is we have a really efficient and user-friendly interactive website at hiddenlinks.com, just as simple as you would think. So you go to hiddenlinks.com, and right when you go on there, you can educate yourself right off the bat really quickly. There's about a 3-minute summary with Sir Nick Faldo giving you highlights about what we do, where we do it, different regions. There's different trips and itineraries that we have videos for. We have highlights of each of the courses that we pretty much work with. You'll be able to, most importantly, start your journey by filling out what's called a tour fitting form. It'll take you about 3 minutes. As soon as you fill it out, one of our sales team members will get that tour fitting form, and in a period of hours to a few days based on time of year, we'll get back to you and we'll give you a sample itinerary based on what you're looking for. And our team knows exactly based on that series of questions what will be more than likely the right fit for you, and then often it's some fine tuning. We have lots of different transportation options. You could just do point-to-point transfers, or you could have a fully chauffeured luxury coach for the entire time. So if we had a catchphrase and slogan, it's the golf tour of your imagination. And there's a reason for that, because we really mean it. So whatever you're looking for, we've got it covered. And if you happen to have a trip where you have some golfers and some non-golfers, or some people who want to play every day and some who don't, we have whiskey trail tours, we've got sightseeing tours, we've got castle tours. There's a lot of different things that we can do to tailor the experience for you. So it's a bespoke custom tour that we put together, and we'll make sure that we fit the bill for whatever somebody's budget and needs and desires are. The only thing that I would say is you really want to dedicate a minimum of 5 nights to make it worth your while. And we do trips that are 16 nights, depending on what people's time, flexibility, budget, home life is all about.
Awesome. So with that, we will ruin a perfectly good conversation about golf by injecting politics into it. It's called Golf and Politics. Matt and I used to work together for the same congressman. We're from the same part of the world.
When Rob used to be a Republican.
When I used to be a Republican, we see the world a little differently. The truth is that I shouldn't say, on camera, is that we have the ability to find common ground pretty easily. Off camera, we have very good discussions. We tend to agree. There are some impasses where we just don't see the world the same way, but that's fine. I mean, that's how the world works. And but when you watch cable news, it's always a split screen and it's fighting. And so to the audience, Matt might be a Trump jock sniffer. To the audience, I may be a communist Kamala Harris supporter. So be it, because we like putting people in convenient boxes. But before today's show, Matt texted me and said, do you think Mark would mind talking about politics? And I said, for all the times we've played golf and we talk and we text, we really haven't talked a lot of politics. I know we did with our mutual friend and friend of the program, David Bannister, at the Pelican Golf Club. I always love talking with David. Very smart guy. We see some things differently, some things similarly. But I couldn't, decide. I don't know if you really are political. So you don't have to take any firm stances here today. But what are your thoughts on the election? How things are going? Do you plan on voting? Let us know what you're willing to let us know.
Do you think we're crazy for working in politics for a living?
Look, I think that like most of us, we all have different ages where we pay less or more attention to what's going on. Because if you think about it, there's ultimately very little that's in your control, right? And unless you spend your life dedicated to that as a public servant, you basically aren't having a day-to-day active hand in any of these issues, unless on a single issue you're able to have an influence and have a voice, or just have a voice and not have an influence. So here's what I would say. I try to, I'm a lawyer by training, okay? And that served me very well in the way of not judging anybody for their opinions, no matter how outrageous they may at first blush seem. So I'm able to hear somebody's opinion and maybe almost almost like I'm programmed, not have some immediate knee-jerk reaction where I sit there and I say, I can't believe that that's your opinion. I would say that if I've learned anything in politics over the years, it's that you have to, just like anything else in life that has pros and cons, put a list together and you determine what the most important issues to you are. And you're going to vote based on oftentimes just one of them, because that's going to sway, that one issue may sway you enough on one side of the aisle or the other. So with that said, I will tell you, Rob, that based on or both you guys, I should say, Rob and Matt, based on my life experiences, I've always found that in the environments I've been in, I try not to get into too many heated debates, not to give you a boring answer, but just to be candid, because I just feel like it's almost, yes, the world issues are much more important than a golf course. So I'm not trying to compare and contrast the two, but it's the same comment I made 30 minutes ago, which is your favorite golf course could be my least favorite. So you've known me long enough now that you've never given me an opinion on a course, and you may hear me get very quiet, but you're not going to hear me say, you're out of your mind, you don't know anything about architecture. How in the world could you like that golf course? It's the most overrated golf course ever. It's just not the way my brain works. And I'm very similar when it comes to politics. So sure, I have an opinion, and I probably grew up, mostly independent, because I was trying to always feel like I wanted to have the best candidate for that particular election when I was old enough to vote. And I do feel like, every American has the right to vote. And I do believe you should exercise that vote, because that is a privilege. That is one of the great things about our country. And yeah, I definitely do plan on voting. In terms of which way, I hope it's not going to disappoint you. It's not something I'm going to discuss or share in a public forum, because I just look at it as I respect everybody's opinion on every issue. I am up to speed on any and every issue you can possibly bring up. And I can tell you, I see the pros and cons on each. And sure, there are some that don't have any pros, that are just unfortunate issues and timing. And a lot of things don't have a perfect solution. So I respect people that think that they don't have a single good choice, and I respect people that think they have a great choice that resonates with them. So,
Well, Michael Jordan once said that he doesn't get involved in politics because Republicans buy shoes too. That was I want to congratulate you on a light note for the most politically correct non-answer ever given. I could not have written it better for a candidate myself, when trying to say absolutely nothing with the skill of a finely trained lawyer. That was absolutely beautiful. I'm not gonna pry any more than that. I mean, Matt and I joke.
Let me say this though. I do respect that answer in a lot of ways, and I was impressed with that answer.
Yeah.
I think if I was not involved in politics, I probably wouldn't be telling people what my opinion was on who I was going to vote for, because, like Rob said, him and I have wildly different opinions on certain issues. Like we just had a debate, him and I, on the podcast. It hasn't been released yet. By the time this one comes out, it probably will be released, on transgender athletes. And I'm opposed to biological men competing in female sports. And I have a strong opinion on that. But what I appreciate about Rob is that he's not attacking me as being a bigot or being, discriminatory and angry about it. He can say, okay, I respect where you're coming from. And I can sit there and say, Rob, I respect where you're coming from. And I also can, agree that maybe sometimes we overinflate the importance of this issue in our politics. So I think that if people could just lay down I'm going to shoot you in the face every time you disagree with me, we could probably come to better solutions in our country. And I think if you're running a business and you got to attract a lot of people knowing how toxic things are right now, I don't think I'd be giving my opinion either if I owned a business.
Also, to Matt's point about our long careers in politics, if we weren't in politics, we'd probably be hungry. I don't know what else I don't know what else we'd do. But
Hopefully we can make a living doing something in the golf industry. I don't know, but who knows?
it certainly wouldn't be playing golf.
What did Rob say best on our Ireland trip? He said, Matt and I, we do this for a living because we have a very expensive hobby, and this pays for a very expensive hobby.
Right. Let me give you one perfect example of how I respect people being super outspoken and their right to have an opinion, and other people who sort of always have that play it safe. I'm going to respect somebody's favorite versus my least favorite, and the other way around. So if you look at Tom Doak in golf course architecture, he is without question the most outspoken architect ever. He's written plenty of books that are publicly available that you can either buy the actual book or go online and see excerpts from them. And basically what you'll see is he has plenty of golf courses that people absolutely love, memberships that are so proud of your golf course, of their golf courses, that he gives 0 out of 10 or 1 out of 10 on his ranking system, right? And then if you talk to Ben Crenshaw, who has really established himself as a almost universally loved golf course architect, and certainly a great guy who people love being around and talking golf with. You know, he started his architecture career really at Kapalua, but what put him on the map more than anything to be known as one of the renowned architects with Bill Core is Sand Hills. And that's in Mullen, Nebraska. But the thing is, I don't think I've ever heard Ben Crenshaw in any capacity. And he and I have chatted and exchanged letters for many years now. And by the way, he's such a gentleman. He handwrites every letter. It's almost as if he's using a feather pen. It's got that ink look where it's on his own stationery and it just says Ben Crenshaw and it comes from his P.O. box. And when that letter comes in the mail, I'm super excited. So here we are talking live on a podcast. We use text, we use social media, and he and I exchange actually handwritten letters. But with that said, I've never heard him criticize another architect or say an unkind thing about any other golf course. And as a matter of fact, he one time wrote up a top 10 golf course list. And basically, Friars Head and Sand Hills, which are probably the two courses he and Bill are known most for, are not on his top 10 list. And he's such a humble guy. I asked him why, and he's such a humble guy. His answer was, well, I just didn't feel it was right to put courses I designed on there. And, Tom Doak is a highly respected architect who's very thoughtful in what he does and obviously does a great job. And he's got plenty of criticisms of a lot of architects and a lot of golf courses. So there's no right or wrong.
But what comes with that, too, is I think also a level of respect. So I respect the difference between Doak and Crenshaw. They have different personalities. I love hearing Doak's opinions. I don't always agree with them, but he's earned his right. He's got the stripes to know what he's talking about. And so when I disagree with Matt, it never gets personal because I respect that he's done his homework. He's thought deeply about these issues. He might look like a meathead, but with all the muscles and the weightlifting and the 350-yard drives. But underneath that is a soft, thoughtful, caring, dare I say, borderline progressive person. Just trying to work his
business in Oklahoma, Rob. Be careful here.
Trying to work his way out of the MAGA persona. And that, all kidding aside, I think when it comes to debates or when it comes to anything, whether it's golf architecture or religion or politics, what you bring to it is going to be what you get out of it. So if you're generally a peaceful, thoughtful, caring, loving person and you turn to religion, there's a lot there that is going to benefit you and is going to benefit others. If you are a violent, angry, closed off person and you turn to religion, there's a lot there. And it's the same with politics, where, I think Matt and I are able to find common ground, partially because we're both professionals in this, but also because there's a mutual respect. And I think we both generally try to approach issues on what are the facts, What is the logical conclusion? We might reach different conclusions, but we share a similar process, right? And I think that's important. And when you debate golf course architecture, I respect your opinion because, you've played everywhere, you've thought about it, you've read it, you've met with the architects, you know what you're talking about. It's still subjective, but there's also a fundamental baseline when talking about architecture that you have and that I have, where it makes that discussion a little bit easier compared to message boards. When I get into I used to get in political arguments with friends from high school on Facebook, and they would pop off with the most ridiculous hot takes ever. And it's like, yes, everyone deserves their opinion, but not all opinions have the same weight in my book. And it's the same in golf. Like, to somebody that hasn't played very many courses, they might play the old course for the first time and say, oh, that's a goat track. It's flat, it's boring, the views of the water aren't great. You know, 12 of the holes or 14 of the holes share greens. Um, so I think that, what you bring to a debate oftentimes dictates how the debate goes. But there also has to be some sort of core fundamental respect for the other person you're talking to. If I get into an argument with you on a political issue or Matt, there's a core fundamental respect that I have for you as people that does not exist in the world of cable news, talk radio, or a Twitter comment thread, where if you really want to feel bad about yourself or feel bad about the future of the country, open a comment thread on X and read what the people are writing. I mean, it's
Keyboard warriors.
Tommy Toughnuts, keyboard warriors. And it's sad, but I'll close with that. And then if you have any comments on it, Mark, and then we'll go to the shocking.
Yes, perfect. I have two quick comments for you because you really inspired two thoughts that I wanted to share. The first one is with regard to your comment about subjectivity and people having their own opinion versus what I would call objectivity. So I'll give you a great example. And you and I have had this conversation offline and we agree on it. If you look at trends in architecture, it's very easy to take whatever the modern trend in architecture is and criticize golf courses from 25 to 35 years ago because that was just a different trend in a different era. I'll give you a perfect example. Oftentimes I hear Rees Jones courses debated, right? Rees Jones courses are exactly designed as he was asked to design them. During that era when the USGA was utilizing golf courses that were going through restorations or great championship courses like Torrey Pines. And oftentimes there's debates over Torrey Pines. Torrey Pines was designed to be a championship golf course that's the annual host of a PGA Tour event and was a recurring host of a US Open. And almost all the players leave the golf course and think the course identified the best player for the week. So when Rees was hired to design those courses, he was designed to create a championship test of golf that tested every part of their game and identified the best player. And from that standpoint, I think he did a fantastic job. And then you have courses like we talked about called Coral Ridge, where you've got a course you can play every day and it still tests every part of your game and it still makes you feel like you shot what you should have shot, but it's absolutely enjoyable and you can play it every day. So if you accept golf courses for the way in which they were designed, it's okay to like a golf course that may not be consistent with the current trend in architecture and also go to the Tree Farm and Old Barnwell and any of these new golf courses that are going to be opening. Kinsale in Naples this year, which is a Gil Hanse course, and Broom's Edge, which is going to open this year in South Carolina, and Ohoopee and courses that are just different. The Tree Farm, these courses are also great and a lot of fun, and they serve the purpose that they're designed to serve. And that's really the key point that I'm making is you have to look at what the architect was hired to do and did they please their client. And if the answer is that they pleased their client, then they did a good job. That doesn't mean it has to be your favorite golf course. It doesn't mean you even have to like it. And I will respect 100% if you don't like it. But I certainly won't agree that there isn't a big component of that isn't actually objective. The subjectivity is personal preference. the core of the architecture is, did the architect do what they were asked to do? And was it architecturally sound with regards to the way the course plays, the way the greens receive shots, the way the course flows with the natural land, which is a conversation for another day entirely, right? Because there are some courses that just naturally fit the land beautifully, and there are other courses out there that don't. And then the final point I was going to make that you hit the nail on the head, which I think is a good one to point out, is the old course at St. Andrews. Because, Matt, when we talked earlier a little bit about Irish golf and maybe touched a tiny bit on Scottish golf, and that can be a conversation, a whole conversation for another day. I'll tell you, the way the old course is really misunderstood by people taking golf trips and golf tours. You will never get a feel for that golf course playing it once, ever. And the reason is very simple. If you play that course 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, you'll walk the course and you can be looking in every single direction. And the next time you play it, if you get some wind or some wind changing, or even oftentimes in a round where you get a 25-mile-an-hour wind that changes direction during the round, you will find bunkers in play that you didn't even know existed the last time you played it. When the pin is moved on some of those double greens from one side of the green to the other, you will feel like you're playing a completely different hole that you've never played before and that you've never seen before. So the genius of that golf course is the elements. The genius, of course, is the vibe that you get with that sort of eerie walk back in time history, unlike any other. You know, that's the origin of golf. It's the home of golf. And yes, a lot of people say they love it because of that. But if you really understand the golf course and you play it enough, you can appreciate the genius. And if you talk to nearly any respected golf course architect, that's one of the very few points they all agree on. They will almost all tell you it's a phenomenal golf course and that they learned a lot by studying that golf course.
I think
Tiger Woods said it's his favorite. It's Tiger Woods, I believe, has said it's his favorite golf course.
He did say it's his favorite golf course.
It's fantastic. You know, Mark, I love what you said today about intent of the design of golf course. I agree with you on Coral Ridge and Reese Jones. I mean, I just played recently Atlantic, and I've played the Bridge several times, which are more newer versions of Reese Jones. They're terrific. They're newer versions of Junior, RTJ Junior, out at Chambers Bay. That's just fantastic. It's a great course. And I played, you know, a lot of the throwbacks to the golden era of the 20s. So the newer versions like Sand Valley, it's public. You got a Hoopie Match Club, Old Barnwell, Tree Farm, Stream Song. And after I played so much of those, and I love them, they're terrific. I'm not criticizing them at all. But I went back to West Virginia and played Pete Dye Golf Club. And Pete Dye Golf Club could not be more different. It's a lot of bulldozing, a lot of manufacturing, probably a lot of money, but it's hard and it's sometimes unfair. I love playing it. You know why? Because it's different. And it's different from what I've been playing. It's challenging. I think all 18 holes, you got to stay focused on it. It may not be a great course for a beginner, but I'm with you on, you know, take it course by course. What was the intent of the design? Is it challenging? Is it interesting? Is it fun to play? Does it keep you focused for 18 holes? And I think I've reached a point now where I know you guys both have reached where, you know, we're able to separate, did we play well with, is it a good golf course? You know, and like there are places I've played where I played like shit, but I could still walk off the course and say, well, that's a terrific golf course. Like, it's a shame I didn't play it the way it's supposed to be played, but I could still say, wow, that 5th hole is the best par 5 I've played in a long time. Or what a good mix of par 3s, or a good mix of long par 4s and maybe a drivable par 4. You know, so being able to separate that. Matt, I'm taking the last word on that front. You kick off the shotgun 9.
Quick, just gonna respect your time. We'll go very quick questions, quick answers. Let's start off with this. You have a dream foursome. It has to include a professional golfer, a celebrity or professional athlete, and a politician, dead or alive. Who's your foursome?
Oh boy, yeah, okay. So it's a politician, a friend, and A famous golfer?
No, a politician, a celebrity of some kind, a professional athlete or actor, actress, and a professional golfer.
Okay, got it. So for a professional golfer, I would love to play with Rory. Never played with him.
Okay.
You know, poetry in motion. I will say I had the privilege a few weeks ago of playing with Adam Scott for the first time, and that was just an unbelievable thrill. What a gentleman he comes
I mean,
across.
he's got an ugly swing, though. I mean, I
Yeah,
can't.
right.
I mean, his
Terrible
swing is
swing.
so
Terrible swing.
atrocious.
You know what's
Terrible
great
swing.
about it? I will tell you this. He comes across as so mellow and low key. He's a funny and entertaining guy. I mean, we just had a
That's great.
terrific time together. So definitely Rory. In terms of a celebrity, I think it would be really cool to play with Tom Brady, for sure, talking war stories. And then a politician. Oh boy, I think as a politician, it would probably have to be Rob Ellsworth.
What a political answer.
I had to really think quick on my toes there. You guys almost boxed me
that's
into a
good.
corner.
But notice
That's good.
he chose the Democrat.
You know,
That's
excuse
true.
me,
That's true.
I chose somebody who advises both sides.
Good deal.
That's
you
who
go.
I chose.
There you go.
I'm the worst socialist in the history of socialists.
Okay.
Okay. I want to know your 5 favorite golf courses in the world overall. First 5 that come to mind, and the next 5 you've not played that you want to play.
Okay. Perfect. First top 5 for sure would be Pine Valley, Sand Hills, Cypress Point, Chicago Golf Club for sure, and Shinnecock.
Those are
Now,
my
those are all in the U.S., by the way.
Yeah,
So that's really
yeah.
not fair. I would say that
Yeah.
Muirfield, Royal St. George's, the Old Course, Royal Portrush, those are all right there as well. So now I'm at like 9. Rounding out the top 10. Rounding out the top 10, I would also include Royal County Down. And just a quick side note on that, that is the example of a course that I feel like I never play well on, but I respect what old Tom Morris did there. It's phenomenal architecture. It's just so hard. So
All
hard.
right.
Can I want to add something on that real quick. I just have to say it. The Irish Open at Royal County Down was awesome. The television coverage was awful. We need more of those kind of tournaments with all of the best players in the world, period. I don't think that there's no Irish golf where all the best players in the world are playing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was incredible having Rory. I mean, Rory did so well and almost made it to the playoff. But I just think the world of professional golf has to change so that we get pro golfers on golf courses like that for the world to see. But I'll shut up.
I agree. Now, the 5 courses you have not played, and this is the tougher one because you've played everything.
Yeah. Well,
What
it's
are the
actually not so tough because I've never been to New Zealand, Australia, or Asia before. So I've been lucky enough to play 83 of the World Top 100, and I do want to finish that list at some point. So I definitely need to play Tara Eady for sure. I need to play Hirono. I'm just a huge Harry Colt fan. I think that Harry Colt's variety is off the charts, and nearly everything he touched turned to gold and clearly withstood the test of time. So I've got Hirono. I've got Hirono. I've got Tara Eady. I've got Royal Melbourne. I've got Kingston Heath, and then a bunch of others. You know, Cape Kidnappers, and that's 5 right there. But Golf Club.
We should also look at a Netherlands trip. I've heard there are about 5 or 6 dynamite courses in the Netherlands I've not played that I want to. That's a trip on my future I'd like to do too. All right, Matt.
For sure.
Okay, what is your favorite sporting event outside of the world of golf?
Definitely the U.S. Open tennis. Unbelievable. As a former competitive tennis player, there's just nothing like the vibe of New York right around Labor Day for that tournament. I'd actually gone to about 30 in a row until the past couple of years, and that's just scheduling conflicts, unfortunately. But
one of my number one regrets was not going to the U.S. Open when I was in New York for the Republican National Convention back in 2004. I had an opportunity to go, and I got tied up doing something else. It was silly, but
right.
That would
have been awesome. I need to do it.
This is a better question for post October 18th. But what is the best lobbyist run golf outing? I'm kidding. What are your goals for your first MG Cup. This is both of your first MG Cup, the Majority Group Cup. It's a Ryder Cup style event. A lot of good guys. What are your goals for your very first inaugural MG Cup near our nation's capital?
I mean, I have an answer. I can go first, but I feel like, Matt, I never give you a chance to talk here. So why don't you go first? I'll follow you.
My favorite thing looking forward to MG Cup is all the great swag I'm going to get when I just show up. I mean, it's unbelievable. I have friends that have been to multiple, and the swag is unbelievable. I know Rob puts a lot of thought and effort into that with his business partner, but no, I'm just looking forward to an incredible group of people that Rob brings together. This is his flagship event that he does to promote his business and create an unbelievable network. And I love everything about it, and I haven't even been there yet, so I'm sure once I'm there, I'm really going to enjoy it.
I'm so glad you guys are coming, because my favorite thing about the event is throughout the year after the event, getting selfies from different people who met at MG Cup, playing golf together at random places, or meeting up for a drink on a business trip because they saw each other, were in town. And the amount of friendships that happen independently of me being there. Sometimes I'm like, well, why the hell wasn't I invited? But I'm kidding. But the best part is seeing those things flourish and blossom on their own. And I really invite people. It's a mix of like current clients and prospective clients, of course. But the other half of the group is my friends and people I've enjoyed playing golf with. And sometimes it's people I met playing somewhere that year where we hit it off and we talked about the event, and you can just tell they're going to be a friend for life. And Mark, you fall in that category where we hit it off and I was like, this is a good dude. I like him. We're going to, I have a feeling we're going to be playing more.
Let's also not forget that this is going to be an incredible promotion of golf and politics during the weekend as well. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, and Matt has designed a golf and politics T-shirt, ball marker. We're going to be swag
hat too.
Hats. Yeah. So we're going to hopefully we've got for the first year a videographer and a regular
Jordan, our producer, is sitting here with me in the studio. Jordan will be out there taking video.
Jordan's coming in, so everyone's got to look nice and play to the camera. But all right, Mark, we just bit into your time.
Yeah, no, my answer is pretty straightforward. You know me well enough now to know, Rob, I just love being around good people who have a passion for golf in any way, shape, or form. I always say that you don't have to be a good golfer for me to enjoy spending time with you. You just have to be a good person. And a good person is a very broad definition for me. If you appreciate being on a golf course and understanding that oftentimes your worst day on the golf course is far better than your worst day anywhere else, just think about that statement, because that's how I believe it to be, then we're going to have a great time. So I love meeting new people. Some of my best friendships have come in the most unusual ways, just meeting them at a golf course. I've gone to golf outings for charities, and we didn't get to talk as much about it as I wish we did, but we have about 14 different charity partners. And oftentimes my best relationship from an event is not necessarily even the people I played with. It's just the people I met at drinks or cocktails after, talking about anything we had in common, whether it's the charity or golf courses or business or life or family. And then the follow-up after where, we're fast friends and that's it. So I can't think of a golf outing I've gone to where I haven't made some new friends in the process just by being there.
And one of the things I love about you is you're very gracious in helping others, whether it's to get on a golf course or advice on this or that. And one of my favorite things about this event too, and I don't turn it into like a networking deal, but there are a lot of guys there that I've already thought about would be great corporate sponsors for Hidden Links, or would be great corporate sponsors for Upper Deck, or would take their families on a trip or take their families to an event and benefit from what you're doing, or be able to help with your charity work. And those are things that you'll find with a lot of the guys there. Matt might find a potential candidate or client. I love that. I love being able to see my friends become friends and start doing stuff with each other independently, whether it's personal, professional, golf, doesn't matter. That's what I love about the event. Matt?
Well, I'll close it with the last question. I think we're close to 9 questions, and we talked about this being about a 45-minute episode. We're at an hour and a half.
We're right on time. We are right. This is Democrat time.
We are the Joe Rogan of golf podcasts, I think.
Yeah.
So I think before I ask the last question, I was just thinking, one challenge we should have at the MG Cup is maybe after a few cocktails, we can get Mark to divulge what his real political beliefs are. You never know.
We're getting Mark drunk. We are getting Mark drunk.
All right, we're going to end with a political question. We ask every single guest that's on our show this question, not who do you want? So you're off the hook. You don't have to say who you want to win the presidential election. Who do you think will win the presidential election and be our president come January of next year?
You guys are just going to hate me for all my answers. Rob is just going to start laughing. I'm just going to follow the polls and just say it's a coin flip.
You are such a pussy. You are such a pussy. I mean,
okay.
Come on.
I can own it. That's my answer. It's a coin flip. If you can give me something definitive that says
I got a new challenge for the Majority Cup.
So you want to ask an alternate question to end on? So
the truth is, it is a coin flip. I mean, and anybody that tells you it's going to be this way, it's going to be that way. Our country is divided, and both candidates have tremendous strengths and tremendous weaknesses, and we'll have to see what happens on November 5th. I think a lot of us are just hoping that it's decisive one way or the other, and we can move on. And obviously, I hope it's decisive that Trump wins an electoral college landslide, but we'll have to wait and see.
I think there might be an insurrection. I'm kidding. It's just a joke. Just a little joke. Someone's got to liven this up a little bit.
That's good.
We've been talking about Colt and Allison designs. Someone's got to bring up the old insurrection every now and then. Light a little fire. Mark, you are not a pussy. You are a great guy. We love having you on the show. I can't think of just a more knowledgeable, decent, kind person in the game of golf. You really are the real deal. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Rob. Really appreciate you guys inviting me, and just a thoughtful, fun conversation. So hope to do it again someday.
Well, you will at the MG Cup. Well, I'm sure we're going to rope you into some kind of discussion because we're going to record a lot of content when we're there. But awesome. Thank you, Mark, for being on the show. And thank you to everybody that listens to Golf and Politics. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and download these episodes. Also, follow us on social media at Golf and Politics on Facebook and Instagram. Jordan, what's our TikTok? We're in TikTok now. Golf.politics on TikTok, and Twitter at X at Golf Politics Pod. And you can also watch these episodes on YouTube. So thanks again for listening. Mark, thanks again for being with us. Rob, as always, appreciate the discussion, and have a great day.